All right, we should be live with day 4 coming in hot. We'll see if we get the same turnout as this goes on. Like I said, people fizzle out. We got a good number in the waiting room. And I would say this is arguably the most important topic that we've addressed so far, because knowing what to do doesn't really matter if you don't find time for it or don't make time for it. So today's topic is all about how to get consistent and own your calendar so it doesn't own you. All right. So it's going to be a pretty helpful topic without sacrificing sleep or family time. Two pretty important things for all of us. All right. So waiting room is good. We're live in the private group. We got a good turnout again on Zoom. So just before we jump into this topic, can't figure out to change name. Oh, 3 dots next to your name, top right corner, rename. No sweat though. I feel like I'm talking to myself with all the copycats, but that's how it works with this link. So we're okay. We'll survive. So the topic today is finding time, making time for fitness without sacrificing family or sleep in the process. Hopefully you're getting lots of value so far though. Type a 1 in the chat if this has been helpful. These 30-minute sessions, something I should continue doing on some level. We got a 1. That's good. If it was just a bunch of 2s, we'd just X this out at this point. Nice. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Good to hear and see. Excellent. So if you have a win to share from this process so far, oh, wow, getting my steps up meant I felt more productive. Awesome. Getting more protein. I was less snacky. Whatever it is, I would love to see that in the chat as well, just to get a sense for who's taking action, implementing the strategy so far. All right. Okay, what are we looking at here? Ah, yes. A little different presentation today, not the fancy slides, because we're actually going to workshop the calendar. So the first quote is, show me your calendar and I'll show you your priorities, right? So if you're your last priority, likely you don't have any workouts in your calendar, you don't have meal prep scheduled on Sundays, you don't have any time for yourself. It's all work appointments, just filling your days, right? So we got people sharing their wins, 13K steps over the last 2 days, boom. Got my protein up, down 8 pounds. Mitch Calvert. No, I think that's Sherry. Nice job. Really crushed it. So back in memory lane a little bit here when I was a trainer. What were those years? 2013, 2018. Luckily, I didn't have a 5 a.m. club. I could get up at 6, and my first client was 6:30 or 7. And I would kind of train mostly back to back through the morning. I'd squeeze in my own workout. I'd waste a lot of time in the afternoon because I had to be there still, but without clients. And then evening, it was like a split shift, right? Not conducive to having children, but I didn't have kids at the time, so it worked. And then I'd go home, eat, and then I would build this side business, because this was always the dream, was to be in business for myself. So most days it wasn't 12 a.m., but I'm trying to, for dramatic effect, I'm really telling you guys how hard I worked. So that would be the time I would write articles, post on social media, do things I wasn't really sure what I was supposed to be doing, and didn't really become all that effective with it till later. But that was the schedule in those early days. Now it's a lot more structured because I'm my own boss. So I only tell myself off nowadays, which is nice. Less likely to get fired that way. So I get up early-ish. I found my sweet spot is around 6:30. I've tried earlier, and it just cuts too much into my evening, especially with our kids. The older one in particular doesn't cooperate much at bedtime, so it always stretches out. So you want a little time to yourself to wind down. So to get that, I just get up a little bit later. And that's where I don't look at social media or email or all these things that are important but are reactive. That's when I wrote the book that I now have on Amazon. I think a few of you purchased it. I really appreciate that. Where is it? Here it is, on cue. So I'll share that as it's on a pre-sale price for $270. Anyway, enough salesmanship. That is the time I'd be writing Emails, if you're on my email list, you hear from me quite a bit. I get a lot of creative juices flowing from that, and that's how I help my clientele by researching things. And then it kind of, the best way to learn something is to teach it, I find. So once I kind of learn it, then I share it in email format. I retain it much better. Then the chaos of the day starts. There's just no work getting done at this point in that hour before school. So getting the kids' lunches prepped, trying to convince them to eat a healthy breakfast and often failing, and then getting them out the door. Even, in winter, it's worse. Snowsuits, I swear they move at a snail's pace just to stress us out. But a lot easier nowadays with less layers to put on. And then I jump right in. Usually my calendar has something booked at 9. Client call, prospective client call. I like to do my videos for social media in that early morning block because I'm out of energy by the end of the day. Weekly meeting. Yes, with admin, social media team. About that. And the rest of the day is more so just reactive stuff. I do block off, and this is going to be a key takeaway. I actually physically put this in my calendar, 12:30 to 1:30 for a workout. Breaks up my day. I feel so much more productive in the afternoon if I've gotten my body moving at the midway point. Blah, blah, blah. I don't need to go too into depth into this. What I'm going to share with you is kind of how to map it out for yourselves. So my schedule isn't yours, and it might not make sense for you. If you run your own business, it might have some elements that work. But if you're at the whim of an employer who puts meetings in your calendar, then obviously some of these things just wouldn't work as well. We're going to get to that. Okay. All good so far? All right. So this is the takeaway. Fitting in fitness requires planning ahead. If it's not in the calendar, it likely will get skipped. At least not all the time, but some of the time. And we don't want that. So we have to have these rocks in our calendar that are appointments with ourselves that are as non-negotiable as any other appointment. But making sure it's sustainable for you is the other key. All right, so we're going to time block shortly, but I want to give an example 9 to 5 schedule for the majority of people, and then an example shift work evening type schedule, because we have lots of clients who are cops, nurses, firefighters, and obviously less conventional. So knowing yourself best, you need to wake up and give yourself a little time for yourself. Doesn't have to be a lot. If you're not the type that you like to jump right into a workout, just get in a walk or some bit of movement first thing in the morning. Unfortunately, in these parts of the world, the sun isn't always up at that time, but there's some real links between early morning sun exposure, not with sunglasses on, don't stare at it, but be exposed to that light that sets our circadian rhythm, helps us actually sleep better at night, but gives us that all-day energy we're looking for. So if you can get outside for 10 minutes is good, 30 minutes better to get some movement in, it's going to set you up for the day. Okay. So that would be part 1, is have personal time at the start of the day and end of the day when you can squeeze in strength workout or movement. Okay. All right. So this is pretty standard. Breakfast, prep your own lunch, commute to work, job and commute home, 9 to 5:30, we'll say. Best case scenario, probably sometimes you got to clock it in a little longer at the office, such is the case. And then before you get into that Netflix mode, before you put on those comfy clothes, get your workout clothes on and have your home or a gym workout, if that's on the way home, in that evening block. Okay. Some people have it at lunch if they can make it fit. I'm all for that as well. Like that's when I work out best. If it gets too late in the day, I tend to start to fall off the track. But if you often have appointments at lunch, you're on this challenge at lunch, you work through lunch, then obviously that doesn't set up. But find the block that makes the most sense that you can be consistent with, whether it's first thing, evening, or midday. All right, dinner, wind down, sleep. Pretty straightforward, right? So the goal is total fitness time, 30-minute workout, 30-minute walk, 7 hours sleep. So an hour for yourself. You can break this up into 3 10-minute mini walks. And as long as you're somewhat active during the workday, getting up to go to the far bathroom, parking further away, water cooler, then you should get close to that 8,000 steps is kind of a standard. All right. Any questions on this so far? This is the boring, non-sexy stuff that makes all the difference. All right. Do we have any shift workers on here? Type of 1 in the chat if you work evenings, or it's like it kind of shifts back and forth from days to evenings to nights. Yeah, I'm not talking about getting all 10,000 steps in 30 minutes. Hopefully the rest of your day is moving as well. For me, I don't have any more than a 30-minute walk, but I get way more steps than that because I have kids that I have to get snacks for, and they like to play and move. And I like to proactively do calls, moving. And when you do that, you'll find that number adds up pretty quick. Definitely don't sit the other 23 hours of the day, or you're not going to get close. All right, so shift work. So this is for evening shift work. So you sleep during the day, you work 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. Then when's the best time to work out? Probably after you get off. And then you wind down and go to sleep by 7 till 3. That gives you, 8 hours ideally. I know it's not a perfect science. I don't envy people that have these shift schedules because they're awfully tough. But once you get into a routine with it, at least what I'm told, you get a little more consistent with when you need to sleep, when you need to wake up. So then, yeah, that's when you'd have your caffeine is after waking up, not before the workout, or that's going to really screw with your sleep. Okay. All right. Any questions on that? Once again, it's 30 minutes, 30-minute walk, 7 hours sleep, and be proactively active the rest of the time. If you're at work for 8 hours, ideally every half hour you're getting up for just a few steps. You're actually going to be way more productive. Your brain's going to work a lot better if you're not just chained to your desk. So do your best to accommodate that. I often do. I have a lot of calls stacked up in my afternoons, but I do half of them moving around if possible. So it doesn't have to be a video chat. I insist on a phone call as often as I can as well. All right. So no further until we block it off a little bit. So let's go into Google Calendar. I've cleared all my appointments artificially so that we can build this out. Does anyone want to volunteer with their? I'd love to kind of workshop it with someone and not just talk to myself, but no pressure. You guys are all set with your schedules, are you? Going once, raise a hand. Okay, I won't volunteer anyone till further notice. So if you're an early morning riser, we're going to set that workout, it's a tongue twister, up at, and I think we can, yeah, whoa, I'm all over the place here. Let's set it up to repeat, custom, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, never. I'm going to have to delete these after. All right. Oh, now it's giving me all my stuff. Ignore that. Jeez, please. Okay. So you're going to have to just trust me. We're putting this in, not with my own. There we go. Should have practiced this before I did it, because now it's going crazy on me. But nonetheless, workouts in Monday through Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6 a.m. Once you've got it there, not to say you're always going to be perfect with this, but getting into that cadence of, okay, this calendar notification's going off. I got to be ready for this workout. You do it enough times, you force it enough times, it becomes habitual. And that's when you know you've won. All right. What's that, Doug? I missed that part. I guess you're answering one of my as I go here. All right. So Sunday, meal prep. Doesn't have to be at 8 a.m. Let's go evening. When you're making dinner, just compensate by prepping the 2x2. So 2 proteins, 2 carb sources, 2 types of vegetables, gives you some variety for your lunches throughout the week. You can use a meal prep company and save time, but you're going to spend money to do that, right? 204 meal prep here in town, Mitch 20, they'll give you 20% off. But it's not hard once you get into a pattern of Okay, rice on the stove, potatoes in the oven, ground turkey. Maybe now that it's barbecue season or almost, put some chicken breasts on the barbecue. And at least you're not eating the same thing day after day. But where the real secret comes in is the sauces and spices you use, that every meal, even if it's similar ingredients, can taste different and look different. Okay. So what else do we need to schedule? Do we need to have a reverse alarm that goes off at 9? Or you have to sleep, repeat that daily. We may have to physically go to these lengths because these devices and these TVs and whatever else will keep us up because they're very addicting. So we won't actually put that in, but that's an idea for you. Where's your real trouble spot? It's not going to bed on time, then you might have to actually give yourself a prompt like that. And set up an reward system if you actually follow through on it. That can be helpful too. All right. Any questions? Who needs help with this? Everyone's a pro. They've got no skip workouts ever. Yeah. Sure. All right. Awesome. So I'm going to delete some of these as they come, but go ahead. Is that Sherry? Let's see. You just got to unmute yourself if you.
Yeah. There. Is that good?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. I chatted with Abby yesterday, or maybe it was the day before. Anyways, I was saying that when I cycle, I don't get my steps in, but I rode like 50K yesterday. And she said, well, strap your watch on your ankle. So I did, and I had like 25,000 steps or something ridiculous yesterday. So I was just kind of checking to see if that's okay to do that. I mean, I guess it's basically the same thing when you think of your feet going up and down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All movement kind of fits into the same bucket from my perspective.
Okay.
Walking might serve a restorative, stress reliever for some, but so can cycling, depends on the intensity. But strictly from a calorie burning perspective, from a step count perspective, that's a good hack, is just to strap your watch, make sure it's securely on there in your shoelace.
Yeah.
It'll track it fairly similarly. It might give you a little
Okay.
more. Steps are a
Okay.
little slower than cycle, but at the same
Sure.
time.
And the other question I have is, uh, what do you do or suggest when you're going away for a few days? Like I'm going with some friends to a cabin for like 3 days next week. And I'm like, okay, how am I going to do this? I'm going to take my protein powder and some bars and, maybe some egg whites or something. I don't know. But I'm just trying to figure out how to make the best plan with being away, because I'm kind of in a groove and I almost hate to go away because of that. But yeah.
Yeah, and that's gonna be life. It's gonna always have things come up. It depends on where you're at. Like your early stages still, so I'd suggest trying
Yeah.
to set some expectations with your friends that you're there to be a bit more professional, dialed in than typical, maybe. But at the same time, we tend to encourage, if it's a special trip like that, to kind of, relax the reins a little bit, enjoy yourself, because you can't do that much damage in 2, 3, 4 days. It's about as
Hmm.
impactful as 2, 3, 4 good days. At the end of the day, it's very little
Yeah.
different,
And
you know?
and they're
So,
all active. So we're like doing cycling and going on like 3 hikes and stuff. So that will
yeah.
help. It's not the activity, it's more the food thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Food and
Yeah.
alcohol is the part of our social
Yeah.
life, right? So,
Yes.
yeah. So, I would bring, proteins that you can fill the gaps with, if you know that what they're preparing is going to fall short in that area, but not
Hmm.
being too much of a stickler that you ruin the fun for everyone else. So,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Great.
you'll find
Okay,
you'll do
thanks.
fine. Yeah,
Thanks.
no worries. Okay, so going back to this. All right. So part one is your calendar, getting that straightened away so that you realize quickly everyone has the same 24 hours and everyone's calendar is a little bit different, but as long as you make that 30 minutes for a workout 3 times a week at least, and a 30-minute walk, unless you've got an active job. If you're a roofer or a farmer, you don't need to schedule a walk necessarily. You're getting so much movement by default. But for the majority who are at a computer a lot, you have to schedule it in or it doesn't happen. So principle 2 is to live with a sense of urgency. This is where I think people fall short, is they keep pushing things off. We have these conversations all the time. I've got a lot of work projects right now. Maybe it's not a good time. And when you think rationally, when is it not a good time to prioritize your health? Never, right? So you have to find a way to make this work when you're at your busiest. I'd argue it's the best time to start is when things are crazy, because then when things get crazy again, you've got a system to fall back on. And you've got your non-negotiables, and you're making you, the most important person in your life, the priority, right? So you can't be, well, it's the whole cliche oxygen mask analogy, right? You can't be your best for others if you're not living your best life. So lots of fun quotes in here from cool people. Won't get into those too in depth, but stop wishing, start doing. All right. Last piece here is what I've shared with members a lot, is the emotional cycle of change. And it's one thing to be motivated for a couple weeks. It's another thing to be committed all in for as long as it takes. Because it's going to take longer than we realize. We always overestimate what we can accomplish in a few months. And we underestimate, people are still popping in here, what we can accomplish over a longer timeline, a year plus. But that requires being super committed and focused on one lane, right? So this is basically what it looks like. Uninformed optimism. Anytime you start something new, you think it's going to be clear sailing. Everything's going to fall in place. You get those quick wins that we often do in a weight loss journey where the weight comes off a little faster. However, that soon transitions to informed pessimism, where we realize, well, is this worth the effort? Is the cost of change outweigh the cost of staying the same? Hint, it always does, but we don't see it that way in the moment. Oh, I've got to eat this salad when I could have a burger, and I got to go out and go for a walk when I just want to veg out on the couch. And having to make those hard choices becomes harder the longer you go. And frankly, the last piece to this puzzle is the valley of despair, where we can quit and repeat phases 1 to 3. Hint, that's a lot harder. You never get to your goal that way, but it's tempting at a certain point to say, forget it, let's try something new. Oh, keto looks cool. And we get back into the same cycle where it models weight loss and weight gain, right? Where you lose those first 10 pounds, gain them back. You're demotivated, but then you find something new, motivates you for a bit, blah, blah, blah. So how do we push through to success? It's about developing simple routines and habits that are sustainable. The Big 5 framework you may have seen me talk about. We'll get into that tomorrow. And eventually, informed optimism, realize, we can stick to all these good habits. We feel better for it. We become less outcome-based and more process-based. And eventually, promised land is that success and fulfillment we're all chasing in all areas of our life. And it's just as doable in fitness as anything else. So really quickly, just to show the truth of what it takes. Say you're starting in the 220-pound range and your body fat's at 31. I would say this is actually a fairly good starting point for the majority of people we work with. So your goal in the first phase is to get that body fat percentage down to a number your doctor will be happy with, but a number that's going to put you in a good position health-wise, but also in terms of how you look, feel, and perform. That's somewhere around that 20% for most. Then we recommend stabilizing at your new weight. Plateau is actually a win in this case, because most people skip this part, and that's when they gain back the weight just as fast as they lost it, right? It doesn't have to be a long time, especially if you feel you want to go leaner. 2 to 4 weeks is sufficient to kind of set that as your new baseline, and then continue the process until, frankly, you get as lean as you want. 10% is sort of that standard. Okay, now we've got abs, right? Don't push most people to this, because it's a bit of a grind to get that last 5% off, but that gives you a sense for it. And then last, transitioning to something that's more sustainable, higher calories, which is the biggest win, sculpting, building some lean muscle, rinse and repeat for life. That's it. All right. Any questions on that? I know a lot's coming at you here. But at least on paper, that's how it looks. Never translates that simply in the real world, but at least it gives you sort of a visual of what you need to get into if you're going to make this process work for life, right? So keep that cycle of change in mind and the different steps to the journey that I showed on the other page. Okay. So block off that calendar. The goal, if you can, is to screenshot one thing you've made or added to your calendar in the Facebook group once we get that assignment post up. So you'll get an email in an hour or two with a link to that, with a link to the replay. And the goal is to block off your whole calendar with your priorities and self-care, but just do one and share what that one thing is, okay? Awesome. Okay. All right, we want to wrap this up. Keep it as concise as possible. You saw this last mention, the first 20 pounds beta group. Lots of men and women have come through this before. It's our first phase, kind of our shred, for lack of a better word. So we're taking calls for that right now. Current members, no need, you're already in. We're going to do this next challenge starting in May. So go to workwithmitch.ca if you haven't yet booked in. I know we've filled all 10, but we've opened up several through Saturday. So there should be quite a few showing up on there if you act fast. And here's the link for those who aren't a member yet. If you are a member, talk to those on the fence who are skeptical, nervous, unsure. Is it a scam? What was your initial thoughts and where do you stand now? Don't be shy. I know there's a few of you on here that can speak to the fact that I am a real person and this is a real program. Type in the chat. There you go. You sent that to me privately. Jamie, let's unmute because I remember you were very scared and skeptical at first.
Yeah, I was just trying to type something. I mean,
yeah,
easier to talk. Even make these meetings every day to be able to maneuver to get the link to open. Like there's so much that has happened in my life. And a lot of it has to do with learning to say, you know, what's the excuse? Well, you're not being consistent. And I came in here actually really terrified, but my daughter was in here. She's a very good goal setter. And I thought, I'm standing beside her, watching her just blast away at her goals, thinking there's absolutely no reason why I shouldn't be able to do the same. I mean, my God, she's my daughter. She must have learned something from me. There must be something in me that came through to her. So, but because I had such a sedentary life and I had gained so much weight, I just carried such embarrassment about that. And I still struggle with that a little bit. But the thing is, I've taken off, and Mitch reminded me of this week, 33 pounds. It's taking me far longer than a lot of the other people that I just sit at their, you know, and worship their altar, that they've done what I'm trying to do, but in a much less time. But that doesn't really matter because it's actually working for me. This will actually work. I will get there one day, and I'll get there according to how I need to process it. But I was talking to my daughter the other day, and she was saying, I think I'm going to have to come back because I need a reminder. And I just think this is like, it's life changing. It's changing myself, the way I think, that's just way more positive. And when you're positive, you can do. And I mean, a takeaway for me from today, and I, you know, my immediate reaction was, oh my God, why didn't you think of that? But I struggle with workouts, but I actually have the ability to work out at noon in the privacy of my home. Privacy is huge to me. So, oh my God, I'm going to schedule my workouts at noon because in the morning I put them off and then I'm too tired after work. So I'm going to, that's my takeaway today. I probably won't get it posted in Facebook. That's too much for me right now, but maybe a few months from now, maybe.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great takeaway. I find that midday breakup is the best way to do it if you have the flexibility. Where were you before starting though, Jamie? Because I know just before I let you go, because I remember you being a little nervous and self-conscious, and now you're on video in a group setting like this. So obviously something's changed, but like, what's been the biggest difference for you?
For me, it's what happened between the years. It's going to these meetings, the Gavin meetings. I'm still not really active in the chat, but I read it all the time. And it's that encouragement causes the way I think to change. And the changes in the way I think, there's evidence all over the place now, just not in weight loss. It's in my relationships with other people. It's in the activities that I do now. It's even in my job. I think I would have quit my job a year ago. I don't have to quit. I just need to make some changes, and I'm in control of whatever those changes need to be.
Awesome, Jamie.
And getting over the shame of being heavy for so long. When my inside does not agree with my outside, and it hasn't for years, but that doesn't really matter. I'm really coming to understand that's kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of it's, and fitness programs are partly to blame for that as well, where we only sell the result, the weight loss. But fitness is a force multiplier into all areas of our life. More confidence in the boardroom, in the bedroom, hint, hint. And there's so many other areas of life that are touched by just taking time for yourself and committing to your health. And you're living proof of that. Love it, Jamie. We're very well said. Douglas, if you don't mind, just to get a men's perspective here. I know we have mostly women on the call. Well, there's a few that have my name attached that I'm not sure if they're male or female. But do you mind sharing where you were when you started? Because I know things have changed inside and out with you as well. So if you can take us back to before you started and the main change that's come from this. You might have to go without video because it looks like you're choppy.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty choppy here, so I stopped the video. Yeah, I think, similar to what Jamie was saying, I was just super unhappy with where I was at physically. It affected my internal self-esteem, and just thought, I can't continue that journey. So, following you in the paper for a long time and a couple of chats here and there, hey, something that resonated with me was you got to put skin in the game. That's been something that has been huge for me, and knowing that this is an investment long term, and because having skin in the game means I'm not gonna cheat. I'm gonna make this a huge thing for myself. I also really like the scheduled activities that I like. I appreciate that structure. Workouts. The app is huge for me because it really puts things A, B, C for me, which I need a little bit of structure. And I also I really appreciate the fact that I haven't had to give up a specific food item. It's all that moderation. I can still enjoy bread, uh, starchy foods. It's just modification, making sure it fits in my cap. And maybe that means I'm not going to lose at the accelerated rate that some people will, because they will maybe modify a little bit more extreme. But from my perspective, I enjoy putting things in my mouth. I like the flavor. That I'm a bit of a foodie, so
Yeah, of course, me too.
But this is perfect. This is a perfect plan. I've done carnivore, I've done keto, I've done a whole bunch of stuff, and it's like this is the first one that's just kind of really been me, and I've been able to see the results. So
Yeah, do you mind
Yeah.
sharing the results you've experienced?
Well,
Obviously
I
visible and
went
not.
from, yeah, I went from 185 down to I'm about 157, 158 right now. Um, I'm trying to kind of in my brain hit that 30-pound mark so that I can get on your 30-pound email. But the biggest thing is like I've gone from size 36 pants to 31. My clothes fit me way better. I've got way more energy. The walking has been huge for me because it's been um, a real way to de-stress from all of life and the things that have hit me at different times. So it's been a real, mindset change just to get, those things for myself to be better, to feel better, and be able to give that back to my family. That's huge. But I love seeing uh, muscles that I've never seen in my life, probably, unless I was like a 12-year-old skinny kid, with a 12-year-old muscle body because you have no body fat. But it's great to see, and my kids see it. They're inspired. So yeah, I think and my wife, who's now in the program, is
Mhm.
hey, I'm going to do this too. So yeah, it's been huge.
Yeah, the impact, you really inspired your wife. She's just jumped at it now too. And you were saying she was in a tough spot. So that's obviously sometimes it works best to just take your own journey, and then by osmosis, the rest around you kind of pick up the slack, so to speak, just automatically. That's great. What would you say, just last question, Doug, to those who are maybe in your former shoes, skeptical, on the fence, scared, all those natural emotions that come when we are faced with a potential change? What would you say to that person that's sort of hanging back a bit, doesn't want to make the changes or scared to?
Uh, I would just say take the plunge. You got nothing to lose and like almost everything to gain. I was skeptical at first, and I was on the fence and on the fence and on the fence, and then you and I talked a bit more and through Messenger and like I just at some point you got to look at your life and go, what do I want? And how am I going to get there? And this program is structured. You've got support group, you got great coaches, like you've got everything you've got everything to set you up for success with this program. It's so different than going to the gym and maybe taking a class here and there. There's yeah, sure, there's structure when you're in the class, but there's nothing else after. Um, uh, there's always people to bounce off ideas with. There's there's always accountability. So you're gonna get a little nudge here and there. I would just say take a look at yourself in the mirror. Think about who you are inside, how happy you are. This isn't gonna cure everything, but this is gonna set you up so that you're able to find a little bit more joy in how you feel, how you can move, how you can interact with kids, grandkids, etc. So I don't know. I'm a huge fan. So you changed my life. So I'm here.
That's awesome. I love, sometimes it's nice for me to hear that too, because you lose sight of that sometimes as a coach, because you deal with mostly problems, right? Trying to help people break through plateaus, and it's helpful to hear the impact it's had at the end of the day. And you've obviously shown up and done the work. That's obviously super critical to success. But yeah, the goal here is to provide that support, not just in the hour of a workout, but where it really matters, what you're doing with your time, those other 23 hours of the day, sleep included, and finding a way to create a real transformation inside a note. And that's the fact that that's been your experience is awesome to hear. Thanks again, Doug. So if you haven't been convinced yet, you can book in a consult, no pressure beyond that chat. We just had Martha join yesterday. So welcome. Excited for you. We'll have you on the member calls that are a little smaller to get your questions answered. Today is all about metabolism. So hopefully this was helpful to map out your calendars. We've got 1 day left where we're going to piece all the puzzle pieces together and kind of give you a blueprint to move forward with or without us and make this really a lasting change and make the last 5 days really worth your while. Because without action, information is useless, right? So we really want to help you implement and put this together tomorrow at noon. And hopefully we'll be done by 12:30. We ran a little long today. Sorry, guys. All right. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Pray for sun here in Winnipeg. Had enough of the rain and snow, but it's coming. Cheers.